call to order the April 21st, 2020 Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission meeting. And Jamie, can you do a roll call?
Terry Steenblock.
Here.
Jason Steenblock.
Here.
Karen Moorhead.
Here.
Doug Ramseth.
Here.
Tim Miller. I'm gonna end the live stream
Here.
because I don't know why it's doing that.
Here, sorry, I muted.
Tim Gary.
Here.
Betty Geyer.
Here.
Okay. Are you guys hearing that the echoing of the video? Do you guys hear any additional echoing of the video or not?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. So let me do this one more minute here. I'm getting some feedback. So let's see. I'll try the live on YouTube again, but I'm getting some the 20-second delay is coming through on my end. You know what? I'm going to skip that. Okay. We'll skip that and get it up later.
Jamie, I think that's normal, 20-second delay.
I'm hearing it then on my end as well, the delay.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that might be a little tricky. Okay, so we can go ahead, Terry. I'm just going to have that off and we can continue.
All right, so then next would be looking for an approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Karen and a second by Tim Gary. Do we have any discussion? Hearing and seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, looks like motion carried. No opposition, Jamie.
Okay, thank you.
And then we have open forum on the agenda, and I see a couple on the Zoom screen. I see a name and an owner. I'm not sure if that's for open forum or another part of the meeting.
They should be here for a different portion of the meeting, unless
Okay.
you have anything to say during open forum. Any open forum comment? Okay, you can continue.
All right, so then we move on to the regular agenda 5A, which is the approval of the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission meeting minutes from Tuesday, February 18th. We'd be looking for a motion to approve on those or any discussion or otherwise.
And Terry,
I move to approve the meeting.
Okay.
The minutes of the meeting.
So we have a motion by Doug and a second by Jason. And any conversation?
Terry, I'll do a roll call vote.
Okay,
All right. So Terry,
Who-
Black.
Was I at that meeting? I wanted to make sure which one I'm going to abstain at because I missed one.
You
Yeah,
were
you're at the
this
18th.
meeting.
Okay.
Correct. Okay, so Terry Steenblock,
here, aye.
Jason Steenblock,
Aye.
Karen Moorhead,
Aye.
Doug Ramseth,
Aye.
Tim Miller,
I abstain.
Tim Gary,
Abstain.
and Betty Geyer.
And
All right.
Okay, and then we had the meeting minutes from the joint meeting between the council and the commission as it related to the golf course. So that one, I know we had, Karen would be an abstain on that one, but looking for a motion on that one. That's the March 16th.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 16th golf course joint meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Where are those minutes in the packet, Jamie?
I emailed those as separate cover this afternoon. So they were, it was a city council Parks Commission joint workshop on March 16th, where we talked about our agreement with Foursome Golf Management.
Yep. I'm just looking for that email quick. Go ahead.
All right, so I'll do roll call vote. Terry Steenblack,
Aye.
Jason Steenblack,
Aye.
Karen Moorhead,
Abstain.
Doug Ramseth,
Abstain.
Tim Gary,
Abstain.
Tim Miller. I think you weren't there.
That one was when I was not there.
Correct.
That was not the one we just had recently, so I abstain.
Okay, and Betty Geyer.
Approved.
Okay.
All right, so then next on the agenda is 5C, which is the Common Bond Communities Parkland dedication requirement. Jamie, are you going to bring this one up, or do you want everybody to bring up their own copy?
I can share screen.
Okay.
I can bring. Okay, Donovan's gonna walk us through this one, so I'll turn it over to Donovan.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Jamie. Members of the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, I'd like to present the Parkland dedication review for the Common Bond Headwaters 2 apartment building. Where it's located is over in the Headwaters area. Yeah, my screen isn't, oh, sorry. I have two mice here. Come on. And this is just a little bit southeast of the transit center, as well as just a little bit southwest of the transit center, southeast of the service center, over in a currently vacant parcel. The entire property isn't proposed to be occupied by this apartment building, which the Plan Commission and the City Council have reviewed this. Specifically, it's on a parcel that is shown in blue here, and the building itself is proposed to be a 4-story building on a kind of the northerly portion of the lot, with the orientation primarily on Fitzgerald Trail. So this is the road, you know, the service center's here, up here, if you can see my cursor there. The transit center parking lot's here to orient you again. And it's a 4-story building, 53 units, parking in the rear. This is just a concept plan, and this goes before the City Council and Planning Commission for kind of non-binding review, so that they can get some feedback. The city can provide some feedback for the developer, and so we can, you know, kind of get some, provide some more certainty through the process, through the review process. This still has to go through Plan Commission for site plan review, and there's even other zoning pieces like a zoning map amendment that's a part of this. But this is the initial step, and we wanted to bring it before the Parks, Lakes, and Trails Commission for their consideration. The Parkland dedication for multiple family properties is, the fee in lieu is $2,500 per unit, and for a 53 unit building that totals $132,500 for total. There is a provision within the zoning code that allows for a 20% rebate for planning fees, parkland dedication, and building review fees and utility connection fees. This is something that the developer can request, and the developer Common Bond has requested it. I should mention that, yeah, Andy Hughes is with us tonight. He's with Common Bond, and Richard Palmer is also part of the Zoom meeting. He's the seller's broker. I think that's probably, there may be others. I didn't do a full roll call for them, but of course, Andy's is here. I'm sorry?
Donovan, this is Richard Palmer. And Lynn Pratt, the property owner, was unable to connect to the Zoom meeting. So he's listening via my telephone. How's that? So, be careful how you treat the property owner.
Yeah. Well, he's just a developer. We're used to beating them up, okay? You know.
Okay, I'm going to go back to
Sorry. All right. And so this provision, the zoning code, is to support affordable housing. The city does not have a dedicated fund for this. Many cities do, you know, have community development, you know, or housing authorities that dedicate tax money or active in applying for grants. So in this case, it's in some ways, this is a kind of fee in lieu of contribution to the project. If the city does grant this, and this is just a recommendation from Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission, and then the City Council makes the final decision on these. But in this case, if this is granted, then Common Bond can use it for a couple of their other grant applications where there's competitive scoring, and they actually get higher scoring, better ranking with more city contribution. So there's actual, in this case, a direct financial contribution, and then the indirect, because then they could leverage that for additional grant funding through the county and through another council competitive grant application. So at this point, staff recommendation, my recommendation is to grant that 20% rebate and accept a $106,000 park dedication fee to satisfy the project's Parkland dedication requirement. And at this point, I'm happy to take any questions from the Parks, Lakes, and Trails Commission.
Hey, Donovan.
Yes, sir.
So I was just wondering, okay, so the money that the developer gets, tell me again how he uses it then?
This is simply what the 20% is a rebate. So they use that to help, just contribute to their project and to decrease their construction costs, basically the permitting costs.
Okay, and is it common to do that rebate, or is this kind of a nice gesture on the part of the city back to the developer?
I've only been a part of 3 of these. This is kind of a newer provision in the zoning code. I think it came in around 2010, as after there was some litigation, and the city responded with a more forceful, affordable housing provision as far as density bonuses, and then this 20% rebate as an option. So there was in 2015. Forest Oak 2, which is on Forest Road, a little bit northwest of here. It's a 36-unit building. They did receive that 20% rebate.
Is that the one done by Kading's over on the corner of 4th and 11th Avenue?
No. This one's about a quarter mile northwest. It's there's twin buildings, just north of the YMCA.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Those twin buildings, Forest Oak, and then also, the Common Bond, the same developer, did apply for one in 2018, I believe. It was the Headwaters Landing that the Parks, Lakes, and Trails Commission did not grant, and council went along with that. So basically, this is the third I've dealt with, and it's gone, both ways on 2 previous applications.
And is this a deal breaker? If the developer doesn't get the money, does he walk away and go someplace else, or how's that handled?
I think we have to talk to Andy Hughes with Common Bond as far as how the financials work for them. I don't know about that.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everybody. This is Andy Hughes from Common Bond. To answer the question, no, it wouldn't be a deal breaker. But the reason we're requesting it is because it does help us to fill a financing gap for the project to be able to provide affordable rents. And then it also does make us more competitive for other grant financing. And so it wouldn't be a deal breaker for us, but it may inhibit our ability to be competitive for those other funding opportunities.
Okay, and how is this, I know at one point in time, the city of Forest Lake was low in their affordable housing units. How is Forest Lake sitting now?
Donovan, I'd be happy to field that. And if you want to answer, if you want to add to, that'd be great. From our perspective, there's still a very large unmet need. So we just opened up Headwaters Apartments, the previous project we worked on that Donovan mentioned, actually the first of this month, so just under 3 weeks ago. And we're expecting to fill that project up in about a month or month and a half, 45 units there. Typically, we expect to see those buildings take 6 to 9 months to lease up. And so I think that really fast lease up, in addition to happening right now with COVID-19 and the market being a little bit different, really does speak to the strength and the demand for what we're proposing here.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
I see Karen and then Jason and then Doug.
I was willing to make the motion to have more conversation afterwards, but I'd like to make the motion that we accept the staff recommendation as presented.
So we have a motion. Is there a second at all?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second, so we'll open it up for any discussion.
The reason I was willing to do that is because we've worked with Mr. Pratt on other ventures and we know it's going to be a stellar project. And if we can be of any help and get that kind of building and that kind of area for our affordable housing, I think it's a win for everybody.
Thank you. And then Jason and then Doug.
Okay.
I'm not using your commissioner, sorry, I should be not referring to you by first name, but.
My question is, Donovan, isn't that area over there supposed to be all for retail?
So the good question. I don't know. Do you want the yes or no question? You want some? It's actually the answer is no. We can get pretty detailed on that, but the area just south of there, and this is actually where the Plan Commission did review a concept plan for for property within that retail area, also owned by Mr. Pratt. But it's currently zoned neighbored commercial, but this was not part of the Headwaters Village commercial area that was part of the PUD back in 2007, planned unit development approval. So, for that one, there was plans for, single-story retail, ringing a parking lot area. And in response to Plan Commission's feedback, the Common Bond has shifted this building outside of that retail area. Where the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, which was just formally approved last Monday by Council, does designate this area as mixed use as a future land use category. And that does include the high density residential within this area. So it doesn't mean it's zoned for apartment buildings quite yet. And that's part of an application that'll go before the Planning Commission next meeting. And that's kind of what I was referring to, is that there's some other zoning pieces that they're part of this that are more technical nature, but it's kind of shifting as a result of the 2040 plan. But that Headwaters Village retail area is maintained. Its integrity is maintained.
Okay. And then the other question I had was, we only get a one chance at getting a Parkland dedication fund. So that $20,000, $20,000+ is a lot of money for our parks. So, thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of thinking we've got a good real estate market. There's not any real need to be discounting for that.
I'm gonna go to Doug next and then.
So with regard to the affordability factor, what percentage under market rate are these apartments going to be listed for?
Yeah, this is Andy. The project will be financed under the Housing Tax Credit Program, which will require the apartments to be rented at 60% of the area median income or less, which for a 2-bedroom apartment is around $1,000, which we would figure is about 10 to 20% below market in this case.
Okay.
And the only points I would make, I understand that $20,000 is a meaningful amount of money, and I totally appreciate that. The only thing I would say is that by providing that accommodation, that reduction that Donovan talked about, it could be a path for the project to be able to pay the remainder, the $100,000 of the park dedication fee. It really is important for our local funders to show that cities are stepping up and helping to fund affordable housing. And this, along with the other fee reductions, are the extent of what we're looking for. We're not asking for tax increment financing or other financing accommodations. And so I think it might be important to think about, we're kind of trading a dime for a dollar here. So we're asking for a $20,000 reduction, but are still willing to pay $100,000. And I believe that the $20,000 reduction creates a path to seeing that full fee repaid. Thank you.
I'm gonna call on myself. I didn't have a chance to go back and look at the 2018 meeting minutes, but I knew that we had not approved it back in 2018 as well. And I think some of the concern there would be some of the same concern that I would have here. I do think $26,000 is a good sum of money when you look at our park priorities that we have in place right now, could be allocated there. The other concern that I have right now is that we may potentially need to pick up some additional costs if we don't see, if things continue as they are, for example, with Fenway Fields right now, if they're unable to hold some of the tournaments and do some of the things that they would normally do, I'm wondering if we may end up having to potentially spend some money there to cover some maintenance costs as it relates to that if law isn't able to generate the revenue there. I think the other piece that is kind of a question mark this year as well is we're on a new venture with the golf course, and depending upon how that plays out, we may potentially have some additional expenses associated with the golf course and the new partnership there that are kind of an unknown right now. So those are just two pieces where I just, those unknowns, this money could potentially help us with those unknowns without taking away from some of the other things that are on the plate. Tim, I see your hand up, so we'll go to Tim and then go to Karen. And you're on mute, Tim Miller.
Unmute there. Jamie, maybe you can help with this, but to go off of Terry's comments there, with the park dedication money, is that money allowed to be used to maintenance and other items, or is that meant for new capital projects?
I'm usually just on mute, not unmuted. Good question. Parkland dedication fees is for new capital improvements. So if we would have some maintenance costs, that would have to be absorbed in the 2020 operating budget. And that's where that expense would come from. So the capital would be for new improvements, things like that.
Thank you.
Karen?
Yeah, I agree that there are some things that we're going to have to look for, and we don't know what the future has for them. But I don't think we should muddy it up with a new project that we're looking at that could be a real benefit to our community. and bringing in 100,000 in park dedication is a lot of money. And I think we should keep the two separate. And I just always like to be friendly with developers if it doesn't out of line for us, same with businesses, so that we get a good reputation that we're good to work with. And it seems like the staff has looked this over and they agree that it's an okay situation. So I don't like to muddy looking at this project and is it a good idea, or, you know, are we going to take some money somewhere and use it for something else? I'd like to look at them separately.
Donovan, what would be the, if, let's say, using the Taylor development as an example, where would the line be as far as recommending versus not recommending? Is it in this situation because of the grants and the credits, or what differentiates between?
Yeah, this project is dedicated for affordable housing. That's the big difference. It's pretty rare we get this, and this is the level of affordability that this common bond is proposing is one that really the market can't provide. We won't have other developers coming in who are just bringing market rate apartments that provide this level of affordability. And part of the comprehensive plan is one of the goals is to provide affordable housing, you know, the opportunity for affordable housing at different levels. And there's so many units at this this level that Andy's mentioned. And so this would actually also be part of fulfilling, you know, impartial fulfilling a comprehensive plan goal.
And how does this directly go back to the 26.5? How does this directly go back to the renters?
It's I mean, I guess it's basically, you know, they would pay the you know, before they start construction, there's a series of, you know, fees that are development fees that are paid, and basically they would pay $106,000 at that time. The money they didn't put at 20% would then be rolled into back into the project. And I'm not sure how Common Bond, you know, allocates it after that. And do you want to fill that one in?
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, first and foremost, the fee reduction helps make the overall project and therefore affordable units possible and financially feasible. And then the cost savings really do go back to the residents because Common Bond is a nonprofit organization. So to the extent there's any additional revenue available, we're able to either do additional resident services or reduce rents further. So because we're a nonprofit, we do reinvest it back into the property and to the residents, like all of other properties.
And what is I have one last question here. What is the developer?
Excuse me, Len, you have to hit mute.
Hey, there he is.
There he is. Okay.
What's the developer's investment or reduction here? How does it all, that's what I'm missing. How does it all tie together? So we have Common Bond, which is the nonprofit, which then, if I'm understanding you correctly, the reduction of 26.5 goes back to the tenants through a reduction in their rent. So that's where their give is, for lack of a better term. The city is giving the reduction of 26.5. What is the developer's reduction, or how does that work? Is there land donation or a reduction in expenses from the developer towards this project as well?
Yeah, I think this is Andy. I think it's important to remember that our project will be financed by, you know, a bank loan, cash equity from Common Bond, and then other public and private grants and resources. And so the $26,500 will help to reduce the need for additional public funding like from example, the Washington County CDA, thereby making us more competitive for that funding in the first place. And so I think it's correct to think of it in terms of deferring the need for additional funding from other public funders by the city contributing those funds as a fee reduction.
Also, if I could remind you, there's a 20% rebate that also could be granted for the building fees, building review fee, and utility connection fees as well. So a positive vote here from the Planning Commission, I think gives them some momentum to get these other rebates from council.
Sounds like a win-win to me.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Is there any more discussion or questions at all? I think we had a motion and that was seconded as well, I think, by Tim Miller. So hearing no discussion, do we want to roll call it, Jamie?
Yep. Terry Steenblack,
No.
Jason Steenblack,
No.
Karen Moorhead,
Yes.
Doug Ramseth,
Yes.
Tim Miller,
Yes.
Tim Gary,
No.
and Betty Geyer. Betty, did we lose? Is she not on here anymore?
We
Think-
lost Betty.
Betty.
She's on mute.
Oh, let me. I just have to message her really. I'll unmute her really quick here. Sorry, this is. Oh, unmuted. Betty Geyer. Let's see.
I don't see her on anymore.
I think she's still. Oh, she's not on. So. Okay, so it looks like she's no longer on the call. So I don't think we would be able to have her vote.
It's a shame.
Hold on one second here. I'm just gonna see if she is still on here. Betty, are you on here? Looks like she might be frozen up or something.
She's Cameron, lower left, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, looks like she's on, but she's muted.
I'm trying to see if I can message her quickly.
Want me to run across the street?
Let's see if I can message her. Hold on one second. See if I can. I'm trying to just message her quick. I'm not actually able to, it looks like, message her or anything more. Okay, so I can't get through to her, so I don't know that. I guess we're gonna have to see what we go from here, because so right now we have 3 no's, 3 yeses. So
Is there a way of waiting and trying to locate her since she was part of the meeting in the beginning?
I think what we might need to do is a motion to table probably would be the best until we can try to get her on here. Hold on.
I did private message her and it went through, but I don't see a response.
Okay, let me just see here quick.
I also sent her a text message to see if she was still on or available and haven't gotten anything.
Okay, just give me 1 more minute here and I'll see if I can connect her. Hold on. Let's see, just giving her a second here.
Can we suspend the vote until the end of the meeting to see if she comes back?
Yeah, I think that we would have to a motion to table or suspend,
Rescind.
rescind. And see if we can get her back on. And a reminder too, this is a recommendation to City Council, and City Council will make the final determination on this. So I think we should motion to rescind.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Do you want to do the roll call?
Yeah, give me 1 second here.
Okay.
Okay. Terry Steenblock,
Aye.
Jason Steenblock,
Aye.
Karen Moorhead,
Aye.
Doug Ramseth,
Aye.
Tim Miller,
Aye.
Tim Gary,
Aye.
and Betty Geyer. Okay. All right, so we will have to revisit that then here. Let's see.
Okay, so then if we revisit that one, we would go on to 5D, which was the Taylor Farm Parkland dedication requirement.
All right, so Don, included in your, I did include some information in your packet tonight on this. We do not have an application from the developer at this time. However, we do want to still have a discussion on this. Donovan met with city staff today to talk about this a little further. So I'm going to have him walk through this item as well, as he has the most updated version of some ideas to present to the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission. Again, this is just going to be a discussion tonight, so we're not seeking any action from the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission. Just since we have you all here, want to give you a quick first look at this so we can provide this developer with some direction in their final application. So with that, I'll turn it over to Donovan.
Sorry about that. Parks, Lakes, and Trail Commission members like to present for your consideration. This is really just a discussion item. As Jamie mentioned, oops, sorry, wrong one. We have not received an official application from the, oh no, okay. Some of my software went crazy on me. So you all know where the Headwaters area is. We'll go here. So this is part of Chris Taylor's farm. To orient you, this is Fenway Avenue here, Headwaters Parkway here, coming into the Headwaters neighborhood, and here's the Leela School. So just west of there is a 60-acre parcel that Paul Bergerman, developer who developed Summerfields, to the north of here, over by the Quick Trip and everything, has presented a concept plan. First of all, is everyone familiar with this area? Do you understand where I'm talking about?
Yep.
You get that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the concept plan. Oh, let me back up here. I'm sorry. This is one where we've talked a little bit before about the actual land dedication part of this, and this being vacant property, and currently what's been submitted is 119 lots, and so it really would be an additional neighborhood, a new neighborhood for the city. And I think staff feels strongly that there should be some sort of common space, some park space for people to gather, have those informal gatherings, connections, the way to foster a sense of community. And the Parkland dedication provides a table, and for projects that propose up to 6 dwelling units per acre, there's a 10% land dedication requirement. And so this is about two dwelling units per acre So basically they'd be in that first line category for a 10%. So this is where it's just a straight, raw land dedication. And of course the land has to be land that's usable for parks and situated in a way that really is a community amenity. And essentially what the developer has presented, just he's looking for some initial feedback, is simply that raw land dedication with 2 trails to connect to these outer roads. See, there's one there on the west side, and then coming over to the east side, you can see there's another trail, and these going between the house lots. And these are small lots. They're basically the detached townhome lots. They're about 7,000 square feet. They'd be for the single level villas, kind of the empty nester, or maybe the starting family would be the demographic they're marketing to. And what they have there is about 4.1, 4.2 acres, which is approximately 10%, and that's of the upland area. You can see there's extensive wetlands on each side on the, here shown here, and then also here, that is unbuildable. So that's kind of that's the idea that the developer Paul Brueggemann sent over, and staff looked at this one. We had kind of a virtual discussion with multiple emails, and kind of what we looking at this, we said, well, maybe we can do something better, because we looking at the people who might be there, having children or grandchildren, in households or visiting, maybe want to do something that would provide a tot lot here, also something for more active use. And this is an idea where where you actually have a grass trail that circumvents the project. And so what this is about a 15-foot wide area that would slope down, would be about a 10-foot wide flat area, but then would slope down to the wetlands on both sides. Also provide, some of a loop then too. And this would go between the existing neighborhood to the north here. But it'd be grass. It wouldn't be the bituminous path that we've talked about. So it would have kind of an open space feel to it. And Dave Adams, Public Works Director, says he lives in a neighborhood in Stillwater where they have one of these, and it's incredibly, successful. All kinds of people walking dogs along there. And, walking along here, you get a real sense of the openness. This side of the project is adjacent to a big city-owned floodplain area, also stormwater management area. So it's a real sense of open space there. And then also on this west side, that's, it's a, I don't know if I forget what the acreage is on that, but that's also backs up to, I think it's DNR owned land over there. So you're suddenly creating real kind of a signature amenity for this project. And I think something that clearly benefit the new residents as well as residents to the north there. Also, the idea is that then this would also connect to the Headwaters Parkway. At some point, it would become bituminous down here and meet up with the Headwaters Parkway, which then leads, of course, to the YMCA, to Fenway Fields, to the Hardwood Creek Trail. Also, we're looking at, if this was simply grass up here, there's a whole berm that's been constructed as part of the stormwater management facility. And you could actually, and this connects over to Headwaters neighborhood, the existing neighborhood. I'd like to, let me see if I can bring my map back. So I can give you an aerial photo. No, I don't know what's going on there. Sorry.
Donovan, is that side that you were just pointing at, is that like the way, but or is that on the Leela side?
That is on the, yes, that's correct. That's on the Leela side. And let me just pull that back just for a second to kind of point out a couple more things. Then I will stop speaking and let you all talk. Hold on, let me just get these, what's going on here. Come on. Oh no. I don't know what's going on. Okay, okay. We're getting somewhere. Okay, so just to be clear about what the staff generated idea is, that then because there wouldn't be in this scenario a raw land dedication equal to 10% because of all this land here, the improvement of just grading that for the grass, as well as a trail that would connect here, then connect over to here as well. And this would be the 10%, 10-foot wide asphalt trail that we see elsewhere in the city, as well as a connection here. And then also the tot lot, that the actual land acreage would be decreased. So what we're saying is that then there wouldn't be a park on this side, and then the developer could put lots here, remove some lots here to make it more of an open park area. But there would be a net decrease in park space because of the improvements of a tot lot and the trails. And so this is just a concept, but I want to introduce to commission members how this kind of benefit, because this actually could extend much further south along this wetland area for the next subsequent residential development, as well as really provide that loop. But this is, the developer says this is not their final concept plan, but it's something similar. I really wanted to get this before to just spur discussion with commission members before we bring it to you formally for that formal recommendation. So at this point, I'm happy to take any questions, and I will take away that, and I'll bring back the map anytime anyone wants to refer to it.
I see Jason and then Doug. Is Doug?
Yes, we've been talking about our trails and some connectivity to our trails, and it seems to me this would be, I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity here to have some loop and connection with the trails that already exist. And at this point, it looks like the trails would be using the public streets that run through there, as opposed to having a dedicated trail for bicycles and walkers from outside of that area. To me, all of this, it looks like amenities for the people that live in that community, in that neighborhood. I would hope for something that would extend that and tie it to the other trails that exist, so that people can do something other than going straight up and down north and south on the Hardwood Creek Trail. This would seem like a great side trip to me.
Jason, were you gonna?
Yep. Is there, so in this development, are there sidewalks, Donovan?
Yeah, so they, yeah, that's something I should have mentioned. Yeah, along every street, there'll be a sidewalk at least on one side, the 6-foot wide private sidewalk, separate from the, what you see here on that other, the trail piece. I'd like to, just to address, Tim, your point, if I could bring up the existing trail network, because connectivity is actually a really big, I think, a really big feature of this one. So here's the property that we're talking about. And so you can see kind of the wetlands on the west side, and kind of roughly this line represents the wetland area in floodplain. And this is that large city parcel I mentioned, you know, the existing Headwaters neighborhood. So currently, you know, the trail runs right up to here. And as part of this development, you know, we're having the developer would be required to extend Headwaters Parkway on that south side. So you would have a trail that would come approximately to here, and you know, the grass trail would turn to bituminous at some point, and meet up with that. So you get that connection, and then you move to the over to the you know, and this is approximate here, but then you move to the grass thing, which just provide this, and this goes back to bituminous here, and the sidewalk, I imagine would be on this, could be on this west side. So you have that, or else you continue the sidewalk up to here. And I think that when this was available, if this would be available, the residents here in the Timber Bluff neighborhood would probably be also use this amenity. They just come down here and just walk this way or that way. And I'm sorry, wrong mouse. But they, you know, Timber Bluff up here, come down, walk around, as well as, and this is the piece, of course, that, you know, this is as far as the concept plan we have goes. But the idea with this would continue southward and eventually do connect to the Headwaters Parkway when that next residential neighborhood comes in.
The term eventually always turns into, well, how long is eventually?
Well,
there's an opportunity now.
Well, this developer is also in talks with Mr. Taylor on developing another 80 acres to the south there. But you know, finances only permit so many, you know, lots platted at a time. So that is uncertain. I mean, obviously, that's a really good point, because all this area originally was, you know, approved in the 2005, you know, Headwaters, 2006, I'm sorry, Headwaters approval. And within this area, a small park was actually envisioned. So this actually is consistent with that original master concept plan. I wish I had a better answer for that one, but all I can say right now is eventually.
I think Tim Miller, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so Donovan, you had said that there's, with doing this grass trail around, I've got a couple questions in that. One is, you said it was gonna produce less than 10% land dedication. Would that mean we'd have some kind of hybrid where a partial cash payment and then the dedication of the land? That's the first thing. And the reason I asked that, it's been our kind of policy over the last few years to accept cash only. In fact, we had made, I think, at one of our strategic planning meetings, that was kind of our determination. But secondly is with the trail, I like the idea of getting more trails, because that is one thing we've also lacked. How is that grass trail delineated from the backyards?
But we obviously sign it as public space. But it's been my experience with the new neighborhoods that people are putting fences in pretty quickly. And so I think they're going to clearly delineate the private and public boundary. You know, people fence in for both just sense of security, for dogs, for children. And so obviously there could be some that don't fence in, but I think it's pretty clear from, it's areas that are, we'll have to sign it so that people understand. But it's, just Dave Adams reports that this really is successful in his neighborhood. And I've known some other places. I'm thinking of, I have a cousin in Texas, in Dallas, where they had this situation. And anyways, it's, but that's, I think it'll clearly be delineated as the neighborhood matures.
So Karen, and then,
I had the same concern that Tim just mentioned, and I guess I'd have to think about that, or maybe see an area, because to me, the lots on that side would have a public walking around them. I don't think at an everyday rate, but certainly would be something they'd have to be open to. And it doesn't seem to me that it would be in the best interest of those properties. And the other thing is the tot lot. We've dealt with tot lots before, and with the number of units that you're looking at there, I think we should have something a little bit more than a tot lot, because they don't seem to work for a lot of people. And if it's going to be in the area there, I think it should be something that's more than a tot lot. But I do agree that trails are good, and it's one thing that we've worked with before with Mr. Pratt and others, that we always want to have that in the back of our minds, that how does this connect? And so I think we pretty much have a lot of agreement that, but I don't know if I like a trail around my backyard.
Donovan,
So-
oh,
I have a,
Go
so
ahead.
Donovan, in referring back to Tim's question, is that 15-foot grassy area around there and the tot lot, is that what would be considered their contribution, as opposed to making that tot lot plus a cash contribution to make up for the difference?
Yeah, it's actually, it's to provide, in this scenario, it's the land dedication plus the improvements equaling that 10% of the marketable value. That's what the zoning code provides. And there's, because of the timing of this, of course, I have a little staff memo that outlines this, which is not before you, which would help. I'm sorry for that. But there is a way to calculate that within the zoning code. Basically, the land plus improvements equaling the 10% market land value. And so there would not be a cash contribution in this scenario.
so I think we have Jason.
So I guess one other question. So kind of going back to the cash donation, the proposed park space, would that, then we would have to probably put in a park, which costs a lot of money. And then that would be another one that's being maintained.
Well, the concept here is that the developer puts in the improvements, and then the city then does, there's public dedicated, and the city maintains it afterwards. But so it's but it's the developer who actually does install those improvements. Whatever the city believes in collaboration with the developer as well. But what the tot lot would consist of, is it swings, is it the climbing apparatus, is there a little shelter with a picnic table, that sort of thing. But each of those would contribute to the parkland dedication piece.
So the 10% would cover the land and also the amenities on the parkland.
Correct. And that's what I mean, that if the more amenities you ask for, the less land that then they're required to dedicate. So that's why it went from like parks on both sides of that street in the inner part to park on one side.
Okay.
So
So-
Donovan, if you go back to your map that showed, I was trying to, the map that just has the green area, I was trying to look at, because around this area, there are
That one, or you want the map, the aerial photo?
the aerial photo, if you don't
Okay.
mind. So if we look at the aerial photo, thinking about I'm directionally challenged, the north half of this land, right?
Yeah, that's a so.
The new development. Right across the street, or down the street from where that is, you pick up the trail, right? That would take you, okay, wait.
The trails to up Fenway.
Nope, the other side of it. So the back
you-
side, the
This,
west side.
Well,
yeah.
So the west side, you go out down that short road there, you pick up the trail that goes north towards Quick Trip and then cuts east up 202, I think it is.
Yeah. You mean, you're thinking much, okay, there's, Quick Trip is up here.
South of that.
South of that, then you have, this area, Parklands, or just
Yeah,
how you
that's
travel.
one of them. Yep, so we've got the one park there. We've got the other park off of Farnham. We've got Fenway, which is basically, right across the street there. We've got Leela, which is right, the open fields at Leela, which would be.
Yeah, right here.
And now go west of there, right, where the new development is starting. I think, is it over by Enfield?
Yeah, Enfield's that stub street right to the north.
So from there, I mean, literally across the street from there, you're picking up the other trail, which is looping you all the way around back to Fenway if you wanted to. Going up 202nd.
Yeah.
So we've got a looped trail solution very near this development, I guess is what I'm saying. Not, right by, I think it's right by Enfield.
past the-
Where is it?
There's
Take Enfield and go around.
sidewalks.
Go through
Yeah, there's,
Enfield. And then there's a trail that
oh
goes,
yeah, they mean that little one that runs up through here?
yep, that
Yep.
runs north and south.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that one goes to 202nd Street, which then, that's a wider sidewalk or trail that goes east onto 202nd, which loops you back around through Fenway. So I kind of feel like we have a trail solution there as part of that development that's pretty darn close, that takes you all the way around.
Mhm.
And we've got several parks, I think, that are in near distance. If you look at this one, you've got the one off of Fenway or Farnham. You've got a park off of Farnham. You've got a park off of Fenway. You've got Leela that's right there in their fields. And then you've got the one which is down closer to Quick Trip. I mean, how many parks do we need in what's the typical number of parks in an area like that, distance wise? Because it feels like we've got, what, 3, 4, 5?
I don't know what the actual, the standard is. Maybe Jamie can help us here as far as, residents per acre per park, or even, proximity. I think the idea is that, this is a whole new neighborhood, and it might be good. It's beneficial to have a certain, like, kind of a common space to gather. Also, what I see advantage here is the way the park is situated. It's adjacent to many backyards, and so people have kind of a greater sense of space, kind of open space that'll benefit them, and those lots will probably be the ones that sell first, because of that amenity will be so close. So it's not, you know, it's not simply just for the active or passive recreation benefit, but simply just having that open sense of open space.
Jamie, don't mind, I'm charging my phone, so I'm gonna be kind of all over the place here for a minute. But I had a comment, if you can still hear me, that we're putting a lot of time in this, and as I understand, they haven't even submitted their final plan yet. So we're just giving ideas for them to think about before they come back.
Correct. I think the big,
Right.
the big question they put before city staff was, do you want you know, a park kind of as part of this initial development, and also if you can, or else do you want south of the parkway? Kind of, there's a greater context here. That this is a currently Headwaters Parkway stops here at Farnham. The long range plan, or this be built out eventually. Sorry, Tim. I'm sorry, Doug. The long range plan is this parkway comes down here and comes out here to like finally a frontage road, county road that'll lead people up to 97. So people aren't all coming through, you know, the quick trip, you know, Summerfield's neighborhood to get to the freeway. But so that's part of the long range plan. In the 2040 Parks and Trails plan, there is a neighborhood park envisioned approximately right here. This is, you know, so this is kind of where our concept plan is right here. So, you know, it's about, say about a half mile south. And so this would be more of the park, more community park size, maybe a 20-acre park. And so, you know, right now it's, you know, city staff's opinion that these smaller parks are needed to serve a certain purpose, for that, you know, for the children play area, some sense of open space, but then kind of a more, you know, wider community park would serve a different purpose, more active, you know, maybe there's a couple ball fields, picnic shelter there, that sort of thing, maybe a pickleball court. But it's, you know, part of a large, there's kind of a larger vision here as well. And so and then the question, or vision possible, I should say. The question before commissioners today is, you know, also is, I mean, what do you think about some of the concepts that are floated in the city generated plan, as well as, well, I mean, do you want something here? Do you want to focus more on a regional park further to the south that, you know, we don't know when that would be developed, but that's also, you know, could serve residents in this neighborhood. Well, serve them, definitely serve them, but could also, could potentially be that main park gathering place.
I like the concept of a regional park where I know not knowing when it's coming, but I like that concept of having something a little larger that would provide more service to that community and then the neighboring communities there. But does anybody else have any more comments or questions? Because there is no vote needed on this tonight. This was simply a discussion and question piece because we don't have a final proposal yet, right, Donovan?
That is correct. We do not have a formal proposal, and the developer is still working on some concepts on just really for them, you know, what they want the final layout to be, or their proposed layout.
It does make a difference to me, but my only comment would be, if we're going to put in a park, let's not put it in such a small area that it won't take care of future growth. So you just want to look at what kind of park we're talking about. I'd have to give that further thought.
Okay. Any other comments on this topic?
Donovan, you have what you need, and that we can revisit that? Do you think that you have what you need, Donovan?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I just wanted to kind of present the ideas before the commission members, just for them to get an idea of what's coming forward, so they can kind of, you know, kind of see what, some of these ideas are. And, the developer hasn't seen that this trail connectivity piece, but, it seems to me like it'd be a great amenity, but we'll see what they have. And maybe their designers will come up with something that kind of gets, provides the connectivity, creates more of the kind of a loop trail. So we can provide more, not just the linear pieces.
All right. Thanks, Donovan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donovan.
Thank you.
Are you sticking around for the next item?
I am, and it's, you know what, I don't manage your agendas, look at them as closely, and the thing is that we never got a full application from that one either. So I didn't know.
A couple things then. I think what we could do here is if we could motion to amend the agenda to bring up item 5C, the common bond communities again. I don't think our seventh member is not going to be here for the remainder of the meeting. So we can either make the same motion for that or try a different motion to go through. If it does end as a 3-3 vote, it would technically fail. However, this is advisory to the city council, and the city council does have a meeting next Monday that they would then have this as an agenda item and take the Parks Commission consideration, and they would have that final determination. So really it's telling the council that there was a split on this and they would be the ones making that determination on Monday. So we can amend the agenda to bring that item back up and remove agenda item 5E, the Shields Lake Parkland swap consideration.
So moved.
What are you moving?
Make a motion to revisit agenda item 5C and eliminate agenda item 5E per Jamie's recommendation.
Second. You need a roll call?
Terry Steenblack,
Aye.
Jason Steenblack,
Aye.
Karen Moorhead,
Aye.
Doug Ramseth,
Aye.
Tim Miller,
Aye.
Tim Gary,
Aye.
and Betty Geyer. All right, so then that will bring us back to the item 5C. And again, you can motion again, similar or a different motion. You could recommend to council that they determine that fee credit. Or again, you can put the same motion on the table and vote again.
Jamie, what was it you just said we could do?
You could motion, have the same motion on the table, make a new motion as stated prior and vote again on that. You could try a different motion to see if the results of that. Again, it is a recommendation to city council on what they're the ultimate determination on if that reduction is granted. So you can try another motion at this time and see how that vote turns out.
So it was my original motion, and I haven't changed my mind that it's in good keeping with both of the developer and the city, and it's been recommended by the staff. So I don't know what I would change it to. So
okay.
just
So
that.
your motion?
Are you making a motion?
I already made the motion. I'm not ready to change it. I do think we should move forward with it. But if someone has a different idea,
I'm just asking if you're making your motion because I think we removed it.
oh, no,
Once,
I would make the same motion that I did before that. I would accept the staff recommendation and work with the developer who's going to be bringing in $100,000 for parks, who the city has worked with many, many times. We've seen the quality, and in the case of the rental being good for the affordable housing and the people that live there, I think it's a good break for everybody, and I'm just very much in favor of going forward.
So your motion is to accept the city's recommendation to reduce the dedication fee by 26.5.
Correct.
Okay,
Second.
and it's seconded by Tim Miller.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Terry Steenblack,
No.
Jason Steenblack,
No.
Karen Moorhead,
Yes.
Doug Ramseth,
Yes.
Tim Miller,
Aye.
Tim Gary.
No.
All right, so that's a 3-3, so will not pass, and we'll pass, it'll go to city council on Monday for the final determination on if they credit, receipt, or process that credit.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
so
Thank you.
And we're on to
thank
5.
you. Sorry for that challenge there. So we are on letter 5F.
Yep, the Shield Lake Park Agreement.
Okay, I'm gonna pull the packet up here. Just give me 1 second. I gotta do this here.
So that's the one I didn't send you a packet on that, Jamie.
Nope, I'm gonna run through this agenda item here in just a minute. Just gotta regroup on getting that opened for you guys. Okay, so we're skipping that. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen so we can all have this up here. Let's see, start the screen share. All right, so this is the staff memo that's included in the packet if you don't have it up on your computer. But we have here Shields Lake Park improvements agreement consideration. So a little background on this: the city of Forest Lake has talked with the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District regarding Shields Lake Park. The Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District recently submitted a grant application to try to get a new aerator purchased for Shields Lake to help improve the DO levels to which will really help with the lake quality. Unfortunately, that grant was not awarded to them. But when the city was meeting with the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District at Shields Lake Park, there was some talk about partnership with them in regards to some vegetation buffers and really doing some shoreline restoration, so some native plantings and things like that. So the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District is just really looking for approval from Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission and ultimately City Council. Any agreements do need to go and get approved by City Council. So they just want to work with us in partnership to make some of these improvements for the Shields Lake, but they would need to access Shields Lake Park. So we've had them do some work on site previously, just with, a carp removal project, but wanted to bring this before Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission for some input. The agreement here, I think you might have had a chance to review, but it's pretty basic to call out some terms to the agreement, allowing them access to the park. The one thing is, they did say this agreement will remain in effect for 25 years. So that was one of my questions on, the length of the agreement, but ultimately tonight just wanted to touch base with the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission on this and recommend to council that we do move forward in partnership. I think we've talked about partnerships as one of our buckets to focus on, and I know there's a lot of advantages of working with the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. They have a really strong connection with the DNR, a lot of grant opportunities available that we could partner with, and that is one thing that we have talked about briefly, is if we could work with them on a new dock or fishing pier for Shields Lake Park as well. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Otherwise, we are looking to recommend to City Council to approve this agreement with the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. Terry, you're on. Oh, Terry, go. Terry, you were on. So.
Sorry, I had the same question about the 25 years. Did you get an answer to that? I was just wondering if that's a normal amount of time.
I did not get an answer on that. And that was one question I thought 25 years seemed like a long term of an agreement, and I didn't hear back yet as to why that was indicated. And I don't know if Donovan, I know you're not up to speed on this one, but you've worked a little bit more with the watershed district. Do you have anything from your history with them on why they would have a 25-year agreement term?
I don't, but I know that I don't have specific information here. I know, like with the cattail harvesting, for instance, they wanted a 20-year agreement, and the city said, I think 10 is adequate. So I think they're doing this maybe just for administrative simplicity or something, but it does seem like there's a trend toward the longer agreements from them for whatever reason.
Okay, thanks for your comment. Any other questions?
I would agree that we should try to have that down. There's a lot of things that can change in 25 years, being people and property and whatever. But it's a good agreement, but I just think it should be shorter.
Okay. Hold on, Terry.
Can't seem to hit the mute and unmute button, right? Okay, so this, I know you mentioned the potential of conversation for a fishing pier here. If we did this, we're not giving up our ability to partner with the DNR to put in a fishing pier, through their grant program anywhere else, are we?
No, we aren't. I think actually strengthening our partnership with the watershed district is advantageous for us. The more, working with them, they have the ability to work well with the DNR and can potentially even help write some of those grant applications on our behalf for something like a new pier or fishing dock. Any of those DNR grants that they'd be happy to, if applicable, submit that grant application in partnership or on our behalf. So I don't think we are taking away that opportunity. I think this is just to make some improvements to the shoreline, and their carp removal project. A lot of that was just really to help with improve lake quality improvements for Shields Lake.
I think with the watershed district is a good idea, and if you could get the agreement shortened to a more reasonable period of time, like 10 years, that would be good. But the watershed district would work in coordination with us, I would believe, on a fishing pier. They do write grants very well all the time, so they're very good at it, and they do have a good relationship with the DNR.
So Jamie, you're looking for a motion on this, correct?
Yes, I would recommend a motion tonight on this to recommend to council to approve the agreement. If you want to change that term, I would include that in your motion to a different length of term.
Well, I move that we approve the agreement with the exception of changing the length of time of the agreement to 10 years.
I'll second that.
Do we have a motion and a second? Do you want to do roll call?
Yes, Terry Steenblock,
Aye.
Jason Steenblock,
Aye.
Karen Moorhead,
Aye.
Doug Ramseth,
Aye.
Tim Miller,
Aye.
Tim Gary,
Aye.
Betty Geyer. All right.
Betty.
All right, so then next we have on the agenda 5G, which would be the Fenway Athletic Complex Facility Use Agreement.
Okay, so members of the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, I'm going to walk you through where we're at with the Fenway Athletic Complex Facility Use Agreement. Just a little background here. On April 9th, Thursday, April 9th, the Fenway Athletic Advisory Committee had a Zoom meeting to go over this agreement together. So present at that meeting were Commissioners Terry Steenblock and Commissioner Miller, along with Councilmember Bystrom and Councilmember Monson, and Al Hauge, the president of FLAW. So at that time, we had looked over the agreement and had a good discussion on it. I think overall everything went well. There were a few just pieces of the agreement we talked about in greater detail, and kind of hot off the press from our attorney, we have some of the changes that I hope reflect what we discussed. And so I'm going to do a little screen share here with you guys so we can talk through this. Just before we get into the actual agreement itself, just with the COVID-19, little update on how that's situating things for FLAW right now. They're currently on hold with everything. They are hopeful they can still get a season in, but at this time, it is just on hold. Nothing has been canceled. I think they're waiting for the next update from the state level. We've recently learned that there's going to be phased approaches to kind of opening things back up. And some of those group activities where you're sharing throwing baseballs and leagues and everything, that's still to be determined on when that will open. So they've been pretty impacted by bars and restaurants closed with their gambling, raising. Revenue is affected from youth athletics. And so they just they expressed, a lot of questions at this time on how the season's going to look and where they're going to be from a funding perspective. So the objective with this agreement is to get it hopefully recommended approval tonight from the Parks Commission so that City Council can approve next Monday, so that we're positioned well and ready to move forward when we can hopefully have a season out at Fenway. With that, I'll turn over here to the screen share so you guys can look at this and we'll talk through this briefly. 1 second here. Okay. So I sent over the latest version, but today what you see here are our updates that we've made. One of the biggest, we'll start with kind of the easier portion of this, so bear with me. So at our meeting on Thursday, April 9th, we talked about number 10 here, repairs, maintenance, and cleanup. Originally, that first sentence was kind of vague, with stating that the association shall at its expense keep and maintain the fields in good repair during the term of the agreement. Well, the question was, what's good repair? So our attorney just recommended we add normal wear and tear excluded. So current conditions of the field are suitable. We haven't invested a lot of dollars to do some of the improvements that are needed at this time. Also, given the situation with COVID-19 and there could potentially be a short season out there, I think as long as they return the fields in the condition that they're getting them in, so there's going to be some wear and tear. Hopefully that clarifies it a little bit. Furthermore, we know we've had, as part of cleanup, we had some trash issues in the past with garbage cans overflowing. So that resulted in trash in the storm drains and just throughout the complex. So we did add just a note in here about the responsibility to make sure that that part is being taken care of. So that's the additional language you see here. I'm going to jump to.
Excuse me, Jamie, one thing on number 10.
Back up to number 2 here.
Am I not?
We talked about the priority use quite a bit. So the conversation is that of scheduling our fields out at Fenway Athletic Complex during the term of this agreement. The city would like to be able to schedule the fields for community events or other requests from the community. So if somebody wanted to have a family gathering, they might not know we should contact FLAW for this. They would be more apt to come to the city's website or call the city to say, can we reserve this field for a family kickball tournament? So there was a discussion on clarifying a little bit better when we could schedule the fields and when FLAW would have the right to schedule the fields. From FLAW's perspective, they rely on some of those additional tournaments coming in, which they do the field preparation for and have some costs associated with that. So they do rely on some of that revenue from scheduling other teams and tournaments. So the change we made here, you can see added, our attorney added for the use fields. They have the right to reserve and book the dates book event dates for use of the fields during this agreement. Really that would give them the opportunity to have the first use of scheduling. I don't know that this is quite right, so I'm opening this part up for discussion, but my thought was to further clarify that they can schedule organized sports teams or additional tournaments during this agreement. So that's one thing I do think we need to just discuss and finalize tonight, of who can schedule the fields and when. So this is what our attorney did add. And I think it helps a little bit, but we might just need to add one more point of clarification. And then the last thing to talk about is the weekly rental fee. As you can see, this is still left blank. I think this is ultimately going to come down to the city council on what they would want to charge FLA for the weekly rental fee. FLA is supportive of the city holding the maintenance contract, which we will hold this year with BlackRock Property. However, we really need to determine what that's going to look like for FLA to pay the city. And the reason I say that is originally we were going to have a lump sum due from FLA. Obviously with the COVID-19 and the season delayed, we changed this to a weekly amount, and do know we are aware of some of those financial challenges that they're having right now too, with the revenue stream not coming in as expected. I'm just going to pull up one more thing here. Let's see. This is our lawn care contract. I just wanted to point out quick so you can think a little bit about if you had any comments or recommendations on the weekly fee, but the full park mowing, that's the whole complex, is $1,400 per occurrence. Most weeks we would mow just one time out at Fenway. Sometimes they would request an additional mow for a specific game or tournament, and that was per occurrence. And those costs are listed there. And then you can also see the fertilization costs that we would have in the weed control. I think this season, we likely would have to do 2 fertilization applications and possibly a third. And then weed control, I would suspect maybe 1 or 2 times, a couple times throughout the season. So just wanted you to see that in case that in the event that it brings forward a recommendation on a weekly fee from FLA that you think would be fair, given all this information. So with that, I'd like to turn it over for any discussion, and then ultimately looking to try to get a motion here tonight to approve a recommendation to council, even if it requires a change from what you see on this document. So with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Are you still hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. If you could go back to item 10.
Yes. Sorry. Give me 1 second here. All right, item number 10.
Yeah. Was it 10? Oh, yeah. Wasn't that about the trash in there? Yeah.
Yes.
Is Republic still not picking that all up for free out there?
So what this refers to, we do have a dumpster out there, but this is referring to like individual garbage can containers within the complex or on the complex. So like the individual, similar to Lakeside Memorial Park, we have about 25 garbage containers throughout the park, and our park rangers pick that up. This is FLA has been responsible for that component just because they're out there for a tournament, and just like at Lakeside when there's a lot of people there or a community event, those need to be changed on the hour sometimes or multiple times throughout the day. So that's what that refers to.
Okay, thank you. That clears that up. And then as far as scheduling, I agree that it should be crystal clear that, we have to be real conscious of the fact of how much FLA has helped our city and our parents and students and whatever. And to be able to make those tournament dates is part of how they can pay the rest of it. So I again would like it to be crystal clear that I agree that if they don't have it scheduled, it's a great idea for the city to allow people to do something out there because we'd like them used as much as possible. But I do think that the complex was made for the fact that we would have a lot of tournaments, and I don't know how you make that clearer, but I think you got a good point that it should be clear.
Thank you.
So Jamie, as far as a fee goes, would it make sense based on the $14.40 a mow plus the fertilizer? Would it make sense to look at a fee of $2,000 per week to cover the mowing, fertilizer, any weed, or additional the a la carte piece? You know, if there was a tournament and they asked for an additional mow, would $2,000 be a reasonable amount to recommend?
I think so. I think for the, you know, the complex is mowed, like I said, usually about one time a week. The other consideration is if they have additional mows required or requested for tournaments for specific complex. That's something that the city would not normally do in our standard maintenance plan. So some of those additional mows for the softball fields or the baseball fields might be something you either charge extra, or we just, if they authorize an additional mow, then that's something that if we don't put some form of limit on that, so they could be doing an additional mow or requesting one every week. Ultimately, we hold the maintenance contract, so it's really up to the city to determine if we would do that or not. But I do think the $2,000 is a fair recommendation, but just something to think about with those additional mows for the specific fields, because that's something that we wouldn't, you know, do otherwise.
Jamie, could I ask those who were there, did FLA get approached with this, and did they have any ideas of what they thought would be fair from their organization perspective?
The feedback we got was just clarification on them being able to schedule the fields for tournaments and games. We didn't really talk about the payment, you know, left that to be determined. We really just want to kind of see what happens here, and I think just having a recommendation go forward. But they're comfortable, like I said, they're comfortable with paying the city, and the weekly payment seemed like no, you know, that wasn't a problem from FLA.
But it didn't come up the amount. No amount was mentioned. No amount was mentioned, because to me that seems extremely high when I know that their income, you know, it's not very high, and you rely on a lot of volunteers and people. So I don't know why the 2,000 was not mentioned there, what they would think of that.
I don't know if at the time of the meeting we had the actual details of the Black Rock finalized at that point. And so when Jamie put up the fees that we're going to be paying for the maintenance on that, that's where I was coming at with the 2,000. If FLA still had that maintenance agreement, they would be paying at least $1,400 a week, if plus whatever fertilization and weed control went down. So again, recognizing that if they were to get to a point where they were struggling and we needed to look at something differently, we certainly could do that, have that conversation. But I was thinking that the 2,000 per week aligned with the Black Rock fees.
And that very, very well could be. I just know they've struggled both with the city and maintaining things there. And I just think there's such a huge asset to our community and has done so much that I just want it to be fair. Maybe 2,000 is fair. You know, I'm not there and I wasn't there, but it would be good to work together with them for sure, that we're not gouging and we're not giving anything away. That's all I'm saying is, I'd like to hear their opinion or what they think. But
Kathy, Councilmember Bystrom?
Yeah, I just a thought from the council perspective, and this may be helpful to the commissioners as well. I'd love to compare and contrast the flat fee broken out weekly with kind of what our current state is with the bid that we've received from BlackRock and what we anticipate those costs will be on a weekly basis. Does that make sense, Jamie?
Yeah.
I think that will be really helpful, and it might be helpful to the commissioners, although I'm not sure we can get that done tonight, but it might be really helpful to really kind of compare and contrast that flat fee we charge them over time with what we're proposing for a weekly fee with the new rates.
Yes, and the rates are going to be a little less than last year. So just to kind of, I guess, back up too for context, last year, FLA held a contract for the maintenance at Fenway. So this for the mowing, fertilizing, and weed control. And that total contractual amount was about $54,000. If we were still in that model this year and they held the maintenance contract, assuming we're going to continue with the same provider, it would have been closer to $58,000. And that was something that FLA would have held that contract. And I think that would have been difficult for them, especially in this current situation that's come up with the COVID-19.
How many weeks is that, Jamie?
I believe they are basing it off of 26 weeks originally, but obviously with the situation, their mow is going to, we're obviously already into the season and they're not even started yet. So we're going to have a reduced season. The thing with the contract that we have with BlackRock Property is that it's per application or per mowing event. So we're not held to a certain contractual amount. So even if they would not have a season out at Fenway, we still need to mow Fenway Athletic Complex. We probably wouldn't mow it to the standard for having tournaments out there. We wouldn't have any additional mows of the softball fields and the baseball field. And we could probably turn irrigation off and not need to fertilize as much. So we still are going to have costs out at Fenway for maintenance if there's not a season. So the original intent was, to kind of have them cover some of those maintenance costs offset by the revenue they collect from the tournaments and the team anyway. So to Karen's point, by no means charging them or making money or profit. It's just really to help cover some of those costs for the use of the fields.
And just one more point, if they don't get to have a season, they don't have any revenue, would they still be held to this, that they'd have to pay something out of somewhere? Or if their season is canceled, how does that reflect in the contract?
So that's a good question. There was a little delay in this because this was right as everything was coming out just right before COVID-19. So I did pause and I had our city attorney add item number 22. So if we get to a contract that's approved by council, there is this language in here, cancellation due to the health pandemic. So really if they can't have their season, the association shall not be required to pay the weekly rental fee.
Okay.
So they will not have to owe anything to the city. Tim Miller, Commissioner Miller.
Not to change this piece of it, but I wanted to talk back about that scheduling. In Karen's comment, she had asked if there's any feedback from Al in our meeting, and one was in regards to that scheduling piece. And the more I thought about it, it doesn't, for us to hold them accountable for any kind of repair for the fields and things like that, to remove the trash and these other things, I think it makes more sense to have them in control of the scheduling, with the idea that the community can use it if it's not being used.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
That's my 2 cents on it. So
it's worth 3.
Say Jamie.
Oh yes, who am I looking at?
Just kind of piggybacking on Tim's comment, because I guess we've in the last few years we've had some shortened seasons because of the weather. Whether it's rain or snow or whatever. You'd hate to have somebody who's not in the baseball mode, I guess, scheduling things and forgetting that, oh, now we have makeup times, and oh, by the way, some family has got an event out here, so we have to, either boot them out or have, not be able to schedule for a baseball game and things. So I just need to think that we need to have some protection in there for the baseball games because of that, inclement weather.
Okay, thank you. Chair Terry Steenblock.
So if we go back to that, part of the conversation behind this was the fact that if I wanted to use that field to have a family reunion, for example, I wouldn't even know FLA existed and wouldn't know to go to FLA to be able to try to figure out if I could reserve the field. I would go to the city. So I'm going to go to the city and then I'm going to get bounced over to FLA, which I think doesn't make a very streamlined approach, number one. Number two, we talked about a larger strategy early in the year last year about potentially pursuing a partnership, between FLA and the schools and having a one-stop shop from a system standpoint where there would be a full schedule and a calendar. And this helps position us closer to that by having FLA submit their schedule, and when there are some openings, allowing the city to be able to schedule that. Thirdly, if we're going to get back in the business of them scheduling everything, then I want to see the rate schedule and the financials. And I wanted to get out of that business because we had questions or issues about, what was supposed to be covered per the agreement. And part of streamlining this agreement was to get us out of the place where we had to ask for their financials and try to reconcile where things matched up against fee structures and where they didn't. And it was a lot of work that did not result in a one-on-one matching. And so if we go back to that where we're allowing them to do everything in the city, not having any involvement, then I want in this contract that we get to see the financials again and understand where the revenue is happening. Because in this situation, we've taken the maintenance away. We're asking them to pay a portion of the maintenance, just like we would for field rental for anybody else. If we're going to give that back, then I want to see the financials until we get through this contract year and see if because part of the problem we've had in the past is we couldn't understand even what maintenance really cost, because when we would ask for the financials, we weren't receiving them to be able to reconcile. So I want a clean break here. And I think it's reasonable. Everybody's got some skin in the game.
Go ahead.
I agree with you on the fee piece of it, and I don't know how to get that. I struggle with how do you get this hybrid model, but we're going to let them schedule everything. And kind of what Al's point was if you're going to schedule it. You guys hold the schedule. So then we would have to facilitate some sort of, this overall schedule to that and take where he's already done that and handles that. Otherwise, he's going to give us, here's the games we need, fill them in, on the field. I think that just puts us, there's a lot of work there that we're going to have to do, someone within city staff's going to have to do. And if we're allowing them to schedule their games and then say we have an opening, to Tim Gary's point, when there's a rain out, and we go, okay, well, we have a rain out, we need to move this to the next week, Wednesday. Well, wait, the Johnsons have the park, have one of the fields that Wednesday. How's that? Who then determines who gets, the first crack at it? And is that city staff's responsibility then to determine who gets the field?
Well, I just have one comment too on that piece. We do have, I think part of it's a communications piece. I know that Al and FLA, we've worked together well on a lot of different things, and maybe it's just saying we're okay with you guys scheduling any of the tournaments or organized sports events for the athletic complex. However, if the city kind of gets the community requests. And so maybe it's a communications thing where we put something on our website and people submit a facility request use, just like they would if they wanted the gazebo. I can get that and FLA can get that email. It's a request. And maybe it's just language that says the city, you know, kind of to Tim's point is maybe the city just says, yep, FLA, this one, we have that determination that this is a tournament, baseball tournament from whichever organization. Yes, FLA, we authorize you to schedule that and work with them on that tournament. And if someone came in with a family picnic, that would be something the city would have the right to, you know, we would have that determination, and maybe it all just kind of funnels together and we decide if it's a tournament, FLA has that authority to schedule that. And same with other, you know, practices, anything sports related would be in FLA's area, and ours is more community use.
And I don't think you answered Tim's problem, because in sports, it doesn't always happen that they occur on this day with the weather. They have to postpone it. Now, if you've got, you know, Joe Blow coming for a picnic, are you going to cancel them out at the last minute? Because through no fault of the scheduling of FLA, the tournament now has got to be played 2 days later or on the next day or whatever. I just see that in my mind. We're not in the business of scheduling fields. I think they are. And I think if they have the right, they've got to have those tournaments. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to do anything. And I would hate to say to a community person that, well, we have to take it away from next week because of the rain and this tournament has to go on. I don't know. I just think it's a problem.
Sharing your screen so we can see everybody. I can't see everybody.
Oh, yep. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Thanks. There we go. Thank you.
That's okay. We'll go to Commissioner Miller and then Councilmember Bystrom.
You know, just to add to that, as far as I wouldn't be opposed to some sort of a separation and break, to Terry's point, because I had the same concern from the financial perspective. Is there a way that they handle the scheduling and the fees get paid or funneled through the city? And then in turn, when they need striping services, Al gave us those prices for striping the fields, for maintaining for that weekend or whatever that might be. Then that's just either a credit or, you know, from the city back to FLA, you know, either it's a payment or it's a credit on their next bill, so that they're still recovering their costs to do the work. And then maybe there's a you know, a cost plus type of scenario where we say, okay, anytime you do this, this is your fee plus 10% or whatever, however that looks for kind of a profit maker for them. But we handle the money, then it's an open book because that's the city's handling the money.
Okay, Councilmember Bystrom and then our chair, Terry Steenblock.
I think our conversation with Al on the 9th, you know, once we clarified the goal of defining FLA use versus community use, I think he was, in my opinion, and Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, or Tim, I thought he was pretty comfortable as long, I mean, one of our asks at that meeting was for Jamie to circle back to Al, kind of flesh some of this defining of community use versus you know, versus FLA use. We did have the conversation about what would happen if there was a rain out and the field was scheduled. It would be no different than FLA having to bump them, right? So FLA would have to bump a family picnic, just like the city would have to bump a family picnic because FLA has priority use for those fields if they needed to reschedule a makeup game.
Yeah,
so
and
I think from my perspective as a council member, when I reviewed all of this contractually, I had so many red flags jump up in front of me that I thought it was extremely important to have a very clean delineation of roles and responsibilities and finances. And I think that was kind of our charge and what we're trying to get to. So just kind of really cleaning that up so we don't have money going back and forth, other than that flat fee, weekly fee. that's just my 2 cents from a council perspective.
Yeah, and I didn't get any additional feedback from that meeting to now from FLA directly. I think that they were, to Councilmember Bystrom's point, when we had that conversation about their scheduling the teams and where the community, I did check with our city attorney, and if we gave them the right to schedule the fields for sports related tournaments, games, whatever words that we use, they can, how our contract is currently written, that they can charge the fees that they want to charge, and we don't need to do that. So that's how our contract's written. We just would have to be okay with them scheduling the tournaments and sports related activities, and then we would handle any community requests would come through on our fee schedule. I do want to note that I don't know, I mean, I think we're talking about a couple or a handful of community requests, if that, on an already kind of abnormal year in a 1-year contract. So I think the number of situations we may have with community rentals is going to be very limited, but I know having that language is important so that it's a clear delineation of who can do what. So Terry,
I think that is good. Could it, oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead with Terry and then Karen.
So kind of along those same lines as Councilmember Bystrom, if they are in control of their tournaments, they can schedule their tournaments, they can charge whatever they want for their tournaments, and we don't need to care. We don't have to
Right.
worry about fee structures or anything else. So
Right.
how they do that is completely up to them. Then if we allow, when they're not in use, anybody from the city to submit just like they do for Lakeside, then we know what that fee structure is. It's transparent and consistent to everybody who would want to use that, and we can reconcile to it. And that was that clean delineation. I don't want to go back to, if he schedules everything or if FLA schedules everything, then we have to go back to an agreement on some type of fee schedule. We have to reconcile to their financials. I don't want to go there. I will if we need to, but this allowed for a nice clean break. It empowered them to manage, and it allowed us to be able to have something for community members when need be. And I have to believe if there is a rain out, that there's nothing wrong with having communication between the city and FLA to say there's a rain out. It has to be on Wednesday. Why does it have to be on Wednesday when we have somebody scheduled there? Could it be on Thursday versus Wednesday? And if it can't, then FLA gets priority. But I have to believe that they're going to be able to communicate with each other and work through a situation when there is a rain out to make sure that we come up with the best solution that has the least impact to multiple parties.
So we'll go to Karen, and then I have another comment as well.
Okay.
So
Well,
Karen,
I appreciate everything Terry said, because I agree, and letting them have their fee schedule and do that. I agree with everything, and I like the contract. And I do agree that this year is going to be absolutely up in the air, and maybe nobody will play on it, community or FLA, who you don't know. But maybe a solution would be that when a community person wants to rent it and you know there's a tournament or something bigger, you might just say to the community member, we are going to keep you down and hopefully everything will go well. But if something changes, let them be aware of that in the upfront. I don't know. It's my 2 cents worth, I guess.
No, I appreciate that. And I got a couple comments. I think we can move forward. I have a recommendation here. So I was just to your comment, Karen, I think the challenge with FLA was that providing a schedule is going to be difficult to do. To provide a schedule to the city would be a difficult thing because it's ever changing and whatnot. So that was a challenge in the past. We didn't, there's times where I don't know if we have a tournament going on at the complex or not. And rightfully so, I didn't need to, but that could be a little bit of a challenge if we don't have that schedule. And as we work towards a communications plan or a centralized calendar moving forward where we have all the games and tournaments listed so everybody can see that, until we have that, there's still that challenge there. So I couldn't just say to a community member, let me check the calendar, there's an event this weekend. Unfortunately, that's not going to work. So there's a challenge yet there. But it sounds like this needs a little more work, and just looking at the calendar and the schedule, my recommendation is maybe this is tabled and I put a little more work into this to get back taken into consideration Councilmember Bystrom's comment on reviewing the breakout, the flat rate broken down into weeks, and just spend a little more time working on this language so it's accurate. There is another city council May 11th, and I don't feel too optimistic that a season's going to be up and running by May 11th. So that's just one idea if you feel like this needs to, if we can't come with a recommendation today. So I just want to make sure that everyone is set on all pages and that we move forward the right direction. So I guess open to see what you guys would like to do here.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the contract for forwarding to the city council with a weekly rental fee of $2,000. And a little bit of the cleanup clarification of the priority of use language.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Terry Steenblack. Terry Steenblack. Jason Steenblack.
Aye.
Karen Moorhead.
Aye.
Doug Ramseth.
Aye.
Tim Miller. Was that an aye?
Aye, yep.
Thank you. Tim Gary, he's not there. And then Betty Geyer. All right, so the motion will pass. Okay.
Okay, I think we have arts in the park.
All right, so I'm just gonna get to that item here. So I know we're kind of getting there on time, so just can kind of go over this fairly quickly. We have in your packet tonight information on Arts in the Park for 2020. Just a little background is, we have our event every Tuesday, June through August, that draws in anywhere from a couple hundred people, even up to 1,000 people, depending on the weather, who we have performing in the park, and whatnot. So obviously we're under a unique situation with the global pandemic with COVID-19. We do have the current executive order. We're in a stay-at-home order through at least May 4th at this time. So I put a lot of information together in the packet just to kind of summarize where we're at with what's allowed and what's not allowed from the state level. I don't think I'm on the screen share, but let me do that. So really tonight we have, normally at this point I would have vendors, submitting applications and payment, and really working on our vendor lineup. We'd have our entertainment contracts executed and approved. And a lot of this went on hold about a month ago when everything started unfolding with COVID-19. So really tonight we need to start looking at, I guess I'm also following a lot of other communities here in Minnesota and nationwide who have other similar events similar to this. I think a lot of people are just right now in the same spot we are, is starting to have those conversations and start that decision-making process on what this means for our event this summer. There's some recent information again about the phased approach to open things back up into the in the economy, and we just really, there's so many unknowns, it's difficult to predict what's going to happen with that. So given the planning that goes into this, right now I would recommend that we consider postponing Arts in the Park for the month of June, and wait for one more update from the state to see what our next direction is. And also farmers markets are considered essential, so they can remain in operation. So I would like to move forward with our farmers market, but postpone that to a start date of Tuesday, July 7th. A couple reasons for that is, one, produce is pretty light in the month of June. And secondly, we would really have to move our farmers market to an area independent of Arts in the Park to allow for the social distancing requirements. I've been following closely what other farmers markets are doing, and obviously the spacing for social distancing, hand washing stations, signage. There's going to be a lot more that's going to go into planning the arts in the park. I'm sorry, the farmers market component of this. But I do think we can continue moving forward with plans for arts, for farmers market, and then postpone the month of June for arts in the park. With that, if you have, I'll turn it over for questions. I put a lot of information in the staff memo, so I'll turn it over to questions at this time. Go ahead,
Jamie,
Councilmember Moorhead.
I'm just disappointed that we would have to do it now. May 4th is going to be a big day in Minnesota, and we don't have any indication that things might not open up. I don't think they're going to open up on 100%, but we don't know. And I hate postponing a whole month when maybe people are stretching to get out and walk around, and I just think it's early to postpone it.
Okay. Chair Steenblock.
Just in looking at what's happening around us, the governor has partnered with some of the other Midwest states, and they've made the agreement that they'll kind of lockstep together through this. So how they open back up and what that looks like. And if you think about that, Wisconsin is one of the states that is part of that agreement, and Wisconsin has already issued their executive order that they will not be opening up until May 26th. So our governor has not said whether or not he's gonna extend it or not, and what will or will not, but I do think that's one of the things we need to take into consideration. At the federal level too, they have also written an advisory that if things do open it up, they see it in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and basically phase 1 is a little bit of opening or social gathering, see how that goes from a testing standpoint, and if we see an uptick in those that are now suffering with the virus, and if not, then expand it a little bit more. So I think your numbers as far as gatherings will be restricted, and it will be a gradual play on that. And again, just looking at what some of the other states are doing, and they're numbering. The Basilica canceled their party in July completely. I think I hate to do it, but I would be in favor of canceling June and reevaluating the rest after the governor's executive order, and by then we'll see more stats too.
And I'm sure you're probably going to be right, but the governor said, well, they're in this regional agreement. They're all individual states, and he would be making individual decisions for Minnesota as part of that. I mean, it was clear that they're not going to do every single thing together. They're just going to coordinate with each other. And you're probably going to be right. And I don't know. I just can't at this time just not give up hope.
Any other comment? I know I talked to Brooklyn Park, was on a Zoom meeting that I was on for farmers market management. He also runs a concert series, and it's going to their city council next Monday to determine what they do with their event. They're considering, do we live stream it? Do we get creative on our social distancing requirements or number of attendees based on any future executive orders that we may get? But I think a lot of communities are just in that boat right now of tough decisions and how to move forward in a pretty unprecedented time. So any other comments?
Yeah, I have a hard time much with Karen, although I may be proven wrong, but to postpone all of June as well. I guess I need to see more what that looks like and what the city is recommending, city council that is, for any other kind of events, or what they're, I would look for some recommendation there as well, because they're going to probably set the tone for the overall community. So yeah, that's kind of my two thoughts on it.
Councilmember Byström, would this be appropriate for just a discussion at city council meeting in the future here? If we could even add that to the next Monday to gauge some feedback from council on how community events at a large are going to be handled, or any input from council?
Yeah, you know, this is just hard. I mean, this is hard work and it's hard work, right? This is an emotional time. These are emotional decisions. This is kind of the heart and soul of our community in the summer. And so this is a really tough decision. I think you could just present it as a discussion item, potentially requesting that some guidance be given to the commission. My question for you would be, can the commission call a special meeting at some point, you know, to revisit this in a week or two, once you have additional guidance from the governor? I mean, I get that you have some timelines and things that you need to attend to. So just, you know, a few thoughts from me, but I certainly think it could come before council as a discussion item.
Thank you. Commissioner Steenblock.
I guess I guess what we want to follow Governor Alts's his steps in this, and you know, it doesn't seem like it's going to come together that fast again. Like, so it's going to be some hard decisions. It's really going to be hard, because it is the heart of Forest Lake and Arts in the Park, but we want to keep everybody safe also.
So Jamie, have you talked to the booking agent with regard to his timeline on this? If you were to cancel, how much time does he need?
I've connected with our music promoter on this just to see, he runs some other music series as well. And right now, they're still to be determined for a couple of weeks. He does run some concert series in Wisconsin. The Wisconsin group, they're optimistic that they're hoping to return to somewhat normal in a few weeks. But really, what he's seeing right now is he could see the June calendar potentially moving to September if artists are available. But that he has seen a lot of groups already move to September, so that month is kind of getting booked up and could be overly saturated. But again, he said it's really uncharted waters, so it's difficult to predict in this situation. It's something that we've never had to really deal with before. To Councilmember Bystrom's comment, you know, I think we certainly could look at the first week in May for a quick Zoom special meeting if needed. That could cover the final Fenway contract, or we got that taken care of. But the Arts in the Park and the Farmers Market, I'm sure there's things we're gonna have to work through on both of those. So that is an option on the table if not ready to decide tonight. That would also allow for, per Councilmember Miller's comment, excuse me, to get a little input or guidance from City Council. That could happen next Monday.
I'd appreciate the extra time to allow information to flow, no matter which way it goes.
I'd be able to make my schedule work for something early May. I think by then we should certainly know more from Governor Walz, because, you know, our anticipated shutdown only goes through the 4th. So
right.
I don't know if anyone else has any comment. Otherwise, I'd be prepared to make a motion.
So, but after May 4th, it was supposed to start opening slowly, right? Yeah.
Correct, but no one said what that looks like. No one knows what slowly means. No one knows. Does that mean you can be out in the park 6 feet apart? You know?
Yep. So maybe that makes sense to have a special meeting somewhere around there then.
I'd second the motion.
Hold on, Councilmember Bystrom.
I'll just add, I know the governor is making a pretty significant announcement on schools tomorrow. That might help you flesh this out a bit.
We'll still be willing to wait till I have a special meeting. I'd make sure I was available.
I'll be available.
Okay. You guys
I
aren't
will
going-
be available too, but I can't, I think we have to not only consider what the governor is saying, we have to look at the CDC requirements as well. And that reopening recommendation that they're looking at and that phased approach. We may not see numbers with that. And so I just think we have to be ready to make a decision then based, again, it might be a tough decision, but I'm more inclined to make sure that we're doing our part in trying to keep people safe and healthy and not expanding it versus holding it because it's something that is part of our culture and we need hope and everything else. So I think we have to be prepared to make a decision whether or not we have actual numbers.
I think we have time to listen to some more experts, and I know we all have our individual opinions on it, but I think giving us that extra time would allow more information to flow before we really finalize how we feel.
Okay. Any other discussion? You guys are looking for a motion. Tim Miller, Commissioner Miller, did you have?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table any decision on the arts in the park for the agenda item 5H until a potential special session or special meeting can be had after we have some more information.
I'll second that.
I was muted.
She was muted.
Jason seconded and I had the mute on, sorry.
Okay, so who should I give the, I'll give the, I heard Karen, so I'll just give
Oh,
Karen.
Jason can do it. It wasn't his
Jason.
fault.
Jason. Okay, Jason with the second. All right, any discussion? Otherwise I'll do roll call vote. Terry Steenblack,
No,
Jason Steenblack,
Oh, is it-
Jason Steenblack,
Yes.
Karen Moorhead,
Yes.
Doug Ramseth,
Yes.
Tim Miller,
All right.
Tim Gary. Was Tim Gary, was that a yes?
Yes. Affirmative. A.
Okay, I muted you. And Betty is not on. Okay,
Poor Betty.
Commissioner Steenblack, Chair Steenblack.
can you just send out this link? I was just looking at the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 approach, and phase 2 says for states and regions with no evidence of a rebound, then they can expand it to 50 people. And phase 1 is 10 to 20 people and then looking for the rebound. Could you send out the CDC guidelines here to everybody as well? So in addition to Waltz's recommendation, we have this. And I can send you
So
the
send out the CDC. Okay, yes, I did put in here the phased levels in the staff memo that came from President Trump. And I know that that's just a guide to governors, and I know that governors are authorized to operate how they see best fit for their state. So I can certainly send out some additional information. And just for you all, this is the first time we've talked about this since COVID-19. Been quite a month of transition and change and taking all the updates one day at a time. But I plan to connect with vendors tomorrow, especially farmers market vendors, to really connect and see, who's still interested in participating, give them an update on where we're at. Everything's pretty much been on hold because we just have that uncertainty. So I should have a lot more information from vendors from a participation standpoint before we would have a special meeting on this. So I think that covers that. Okay.
Where'd you go?
All right. So that moves us to brief discussion. Terry, do you want me to share my screen with that work plan?
Yeah, I just thought, before all this stuff happened, we had that work plan that we were gonna work on and visit at each one of our meetings. So I thought it might be at least beneficial to visit the Q1 and the Q2 and just have you just touch on, there were actually some things that maybe were accomplished or stayed on track, at least thus far. There was some progress. So I didn't know if we wanted to talk about that or not.
I guess I'll just comment quick on the first one, goal 1 that's crossed off, just kind of as an update as well, is we did secure the foursome golf management for the new course operations. And the golf course opened this past Saturday, April 18th. So that one was completed, and I think so far things are going well and we're moving forward on that. Goal number 2, we are moving this now to City Council for approval. The sponsorship package is not complete and probably on hold for a little bit as we see how the economy, this COVID-19. We talked a little bit at one of our meetings in February on the policies for vendors. So that's, we took some action on that and we'll continue to update that policy. Goal 5 is yet to come up, and goal 6, we haven't done anything with yet. Couple other things we still have yet to work on for our work plan. Any other comments or anything on this one? I think once we get through this community piece, revisit this again and update and modify for as needed, and start looking at the Q3 and Q4, what that might look like, especially once we can kind of have some time to assess the whole COVID-19 situation and any budgetary or resource impacts that may have. So any other comment on that? No? So Terry, do you have the agenda in front of you? Was next just staff updates?
Staff updates and then Parks, Trails and Lakes Commissioner updates.
All right. Just the update was the Castlewood Golf Course open last Saturday. And then one other update regarding the Veterans Memorial Committee and that project. We're going to meet again tonight, but that is canceled. And this period here is the first time that they did not receive any paver forms submitted. So I think this group's going to kind of revisit after we get through some of this COVID-19 and kind of regroup hopefully next month on that. So things with that are kind of on hold as well. And that's all the updates that I have tonight.
Anybody else have any updates?
I don't think so.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
That was Tim Gary, right?
Yeah, Tim Gary. And I think I need to do roll call. I think
it
Doug
was
get all yeses. So you can just take it to vote, Terry.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.